Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo Chapter 2 is officially here, so let's do a little recap and review. Okay, so the chapter begins actually with a little flashback to Japan's first meeting and encounter with these aliens. And that takes place between Usami, who was the person who was, giving orders to the Akotsu siblings in Chapter 1, and also his subordinate who we're introduced to, Mino. They're basically the heads of this, relationship diplomatic mission. So it's their job to kind of engage with these aliens. And we see that they kind of come to this meeting and then are like, hey, we're refugees. We want peace. But is it okay if our representative comes to this meeting as well? And that's when we see Captain here. At least, we don't know this guy's name. I don't know that he's actually the captain of their ship, but that's what we're calling him. The 10-foot tall center for the Lakers, okay, shows up. So basically what these aliens are doing are kind of having a show of force, being like, hey, we're here as refugees. We're here, peaceful right now. But know that we could absolutely destroy you if we wanted to. So after this meeting, Usami and Mino are like, what are we going to do? Like, these dudes are the real deal. It's no wonder this was classified as a Sukuna level threat because they could take over the country if they wanted to. So like, what's our move here? Should we just thank them for not invading us? And they're talking about it and they're like, we have all of this kind of like political and bureaucratic red tape. We have to do like the diplomatic thing here, but ultimately, that's really not going to get us anywhere. I think the best thing we can do is try to like break through to the hearts of these aliens. And we're not going to do that with red tape and adult formalities. We need to entrust this to the spirit of the next generation. Basically saying like, hey, let's hope that, the next younger generation can connect with these people. Let them know that like, we're the same. We don't need to be enemies. We can be allies. So as to kind of launch that plan, they say, let's send their alien envoy with the Akotsu siblings and, trust the youth to get this done for us, basically, and we'll handle the adult stuff. We then transition over to the Akotsu siblings who are still in the aftermath of the events of Chapter 1, where they, confronted that kidnapper and saw that Maru had the third eye. And they're like, is he an alien? So the two of them are now alone. Like, Maru is no longer with them. And they're basically discussing this. They're like, aliens? Like, do we really buy that? And so they ultimately decide, like, hey, let's go talk to that kidnapper one more time and see what he actually knows. So they hatch this little plan in order to get into the interrogation room with him and talk to him some more, find out about what he knows. And he basically tells them like, yeah, they have this data and we can basically hack it because they don't know what they're doing. They're not up to date with their regulations. So like, that's how I found out. And yes, aliens have visited us. And he's like, if you don't believe me, why don't you go to this area at this time because they have to do resupplies and, you might actually see the ship for yourself and you can see that I'm telling the truth. We then see the two of them do exactly that, kind of unsanctioned by Jujutsu Society. Like, they don't tell anyone that they're doing this, and they do recognize that that could be recognized as treason, but still, they want to go find out more for themselves. So they hike to this area, go up the mountain, and see the spaceship themselves when the barrier technique comes down and they make a resupply. So they are awestruck by this and they're like, okay, if there are really these aliens and there's 50,000 sorcerers aboard, like, how are we going to handle this? And there's this great moment where both of them realize like, we need to become just like grandma and grandpa. And Yuka is thinking to herself, I must become like Yura Akotsu. And Tsurugi is thinking to himself, I must become like Maki Zenin. And there's also some great development here where basically Yuka realizes that the reason Tsurugi is training so hard is because he wants to give the ring back to her. And the reason she's training so hard is because she wants the ring back. They're both basically like chasing their own version of the truth, as it were. But yeah, they discover the spaceship and realize we gotta level up. We then transition to a scene where we see Maru meet up with his twin brother Cross, and he's like, Cross, it's been a while, it's so good to see you. But Cross is just like completely cold with him, telling him, go back and hang out with the Earthling sorcerers, you have a job to do. And he's like, what, really? Like, we already found out that they're just like us. Like, there's good people and bad people. Like, we can get along and get in harmony. And Cross is like, that hasn't been decided, and it's not your place to make that decision. Some people still think we should go the conflict route instead of the coexisting route. And Maru's like, no, that's wrong. Like, we can't do that. And he's like, again, if that's what you think, that's great, but you're not the one who makes the decision. So go back and get more evidence for us so that we can make this decision. And he's like, okay, are you going back to the ship? And he's like, no, I have my own business to attend to. And he's like, well, in that case, like, let's go get breakfast tomorrow. And he says, no, I'm busy. Finally, the chapter then ends with basically Tsurugi having a chance encounter with Cross on a rooftop. And he actually thinks that it's Maru. So he walks up to him, he's like, hey, Maru, what are you doing? And Cross just says, like, shut up. Don't talk to me, and then just disappears. And Tsurugi is like, what the hell is that dude's problem? All in all, peak chapter. I really enjoyed this, and I'm really enjoying the direction Modulo seems to be going so far. It seems like this ripe opportunity to kind of explore the broader world building while getting a really cool grounded story between like these siblings and trying to wrestle with like their place in the world and coming into their own, you know what I mean? And especially this mystery with the ring still, I'm very interested in, but I'm probably gonna make a whole video on that at some point soon. But actually, on that note, I did get this comment here from Klaus, which asked in chapter 1, why did the ring teleport through the trap along with Tsurugi? Because if you recall, the trap did not take things above a certain level of cursed energy, which is why Yuka couldn't go through it, and it's also why his sword couldn't travel through it. So if Rika's ring is indeed like a cursed tool, shouldn't have it had too much cursed energy to pass through the trap? And yet it did pass through the trap. So what's going on there, right? And there's a lot of different possibilities here. I actually put out some posts on social media about this, asking for y'all's opinion. So like I mentioned, I think I am going to make a whole video about the ring, and we'll maybe dive into some of that stuff. But again, I don't feel confident giving any singular explanation right now, but it could be as simple as that ring just doesn't have that much cursed energy. Maybe it's not literally a cursed tool the way the sword is. Maybe it's more of just like a piece of memorabilia. You know, it holds significance, but it's not literally a cursed tool. I personally don't love that explanation because to me, I think it would make sense for it to be a cursed tool, given how we know cursed tools can be constructed by like the repeated channeling of cursed energy through something. So to me, it would make sense that like Rika could literally be in that ring still, and thus you would think the ring would have too much cursed energy and not be able to pass through. But we don't know. I mean, it could be a fake. Like, what if it's not the real Rika ring? You know, maybe the clan is holding on to the real one or something. Like, there's a million different explanations, but for now, I don't think we have enough to say anything for sure anyway. And then also on this very subject of the siblings here and the ring, Master Good sent in his insane theory, as he says it, where he says Tsurugi will be the main character of this series because Yuko will die. However, she will then become inherited by Rika's cursed ring, similar to how the Yuta and Rika thing first happened. So I guess saying that Yuka could kind of become this vengeful cursed spirit that assists Tsurugi the same way Rika did Yuta. And I will say that is an insane theory. I do think, like, you know, one of them might die. We could see something happen with that. But if so, I don't think we would have an exact mirroring of like the other one becoming a vengeful spirit. But we'll see. Now, just a couple of quick things I wanted to point out, which I've already talked a little bit about before. But again, everyone is saying like that this guy is as strong as Sukuna. And he might be, but I just don't think we've had the definitive statements to say that for sure yet. Now, there is potentially even a mistranslation in this chapter where they once again say, like, the aliens are a special grade level threat on Sukuna's level, but it might be that he himself is a special grade level threat on Sukuna's level. And even if that's true, it still does not necessarily mean that he is equal to Sukuna. And again, I did put a video out on this already, but special grade is basically a catch-all term. Like Sukuna and Jogo and the Fingerbearer Curse, all special grade, right? So even if he too is special grade and represents a threat that could take over the nation, it doesn't mean like he is as strong as Sukuna, right? And again, he could be. All I'm saying is that we don't actually have those statements yet. The statement we have is just that he is potentially special grade on his own. And I feel like I have to keep like debating this point where people are going to think that like I'm on the other side and I'm trying to say that this guy's a scrub. I'm not. I'm just trying to kind of push back against the people that are saying like Gege has already power cliffed the original series by putting this guy on the same level as Sukuna. They're both special grade, sure, but that does not mean they're equals necessarily. Then the next thing I want to talk about goes hand in hand with this comment I got here from Ayla, which says, what if humans having cursed energy is a byproduct of past interbreeding with these aliens? And this is something we've kind of broached before after chapter 1, because in that first chapter, there was that silhouette that looked like Tengen, right? And whether or not that was literally Tengen or it was just one of these aliens that resembled Tengen, well, it, draws the connection between Tengen and the aliens, which could mean that cursed energy and stuff is of alien origin due to past interbreeding or whatever, right? So Ayla, I'll link you that video because I do kind of talk about that exact thing. But this chapter reveals that who we thought looked like Tengen in chapter 1 was this guy. And you can kind of tell from the silhouette here too as well. But that's who this was. So it's not Tengen, nor is it an alien that looks like Tengen, right? It's just this new alien, which I really like the design, by the way. But this is just hilarious because there's no way that Gege wasn't like intentionally trolling us, because that silhouette just looked so much like Tengen in that first chapter. So damn you, Gege. But all that being said, even though it's not literally Tengen or an alien that looks like Tengen, I do think it's at least possible that aliens are responsible for cursed energy on Earth. There's actually a few directions we could go from this, because it could be that these aliens originated on Earth. And I'll probably make another video that talks about that. But anyway, this isn't Tengen. So that's the thing I wanted to point out mostly. But I still think that there's still just huge question marks on how all of these things connect. But to go back to what Ayla was specifically saying was, could it be that, the cursed energy as a result on Earth was kind of an accident, and cursed spirits were never meant to manifest because humans were basically never taught to control their energy the same way the aliens were. And he said, could Kenjaku have maybe known some of these things, and the merger was even perhaps a way to kind of recreate the alien ancestors? And as of right now, I don't think so. Could Kenjaku have some alien origin? Sure, but I don't think that was his driving motivation. I think he was just genuinely curious to create the next thing. I don't think it had anything to do with aliens. And then also I wanted to shout out Manga, who sent me in this comment that said, last year when I started university, JJK ended, and now when I'm starting my second year, the sequel comes out. So my guy, I'm gonna need you to keep going to school so that we keep getting JJK stuff every year. I would really appreciate that. But then he also says, I think Maru and the alien leader are the same person. I'd be curious to hear why you think that, because I do think that's a little bit out there. I don't see any evidence of that, but I don't know. Again, you're going to have to let us know what you mean by that. Is it his ability, or he can literally transform into that? Let me know. And all of you, let me know your thoughts on this chapter. Again, I've got ideas for separate videos we'll make talking about different subjects, but I like kind of doing this kind of recap and review for each chapter. So let me know if you like that, and we'll keep it going. And I do plan on doing a stream today. So if you watch this video after I put it out, we're going to stream, we're going to read the chapter together and talk about it. We'll talk about y'all's questions and all that stuff. So come hang out there. It'll absolutely be happening on YouTube, most likely TikTok, and maybe Twitch as well. So follow me all those places. But as always, y'all, thank you for watching.